reflect on possibly what we can die for. As usual in the studios, the panel is set to take us through the big stories of the week. A busy week indeed, and it's another time in politics when different political formations in this country are in retreats. We had the National Resistance Movement. Of course, the retreat is still going on. The NRM Parliamentary Caucus retreat in Chankwanzi National Leadership Institute. But again, the opposition also had their two-day retreat in Munyonyo. It concluded yesterday evening as they were deliberating on the constitutional and electoral reforms, and of course on the process of consultation, which they said is actually going to start very soon, on how the constitutional amendments can be effected. On the panel this morning, the man from Namisindwa, Dr. Gerard Werihe Wanzara, is in the studios, and I will ask him to speak to our viewers before we kick off the show.
Thank you, Apple. Again, it's a great day being here to speak to our viewers. Good morning, our viewers from across the country, and also to congratulate those who have made it to Uganda Matters prayers in Namugongo, but also a caution that there are those who are doing a lot of merrymaking around Chireka, and those places are very dangerous. So please be careful. We don't want you to lose your life. Let's focus on what brought us, as we plan to go back to Mbale, to Namisindwa. I know that politicians sponsored so many vehicles, particularly the Honorable Nandala, I think sent about 700 pilgrims. Wow. With so many Kamunyes. They were dropping them there. So please be careful as we celebrate this day. Thank you.
I remember the last year, our fellow panelist, Richard Barnabas Tinkasimire, had to trek from Kagadi to Kampala, and I tried to raise him, and he was not picking. Possibly he could be on the way again, tracking.
Yeah, I've seen quite a number of them. I see Mwijuche every year, for instance, walks from Buhweju. You know how far Buhweju is. And I've seen Olaro Tunu, always part of the Kitugu Muguru team. So there are quite many coming from distant places. We pray they reach safely, and also to condemn those who are driving recklessly and killing them on the road. I forgot to greet my fellow panelists today, particularly the Honorable Waswa Alule. He's one of those people I used to admire. I think the 6th Parliament was also in the Inspectorate of Government, I remember. So I'm really happy to be with you here. Son. Yeah, sure. I was asking myself, where did he go? And also greet my colleague here, Council Senyonga. I know in this discussion he adds a lot of value.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, Dr. Gerard Werihe Wanzara. Simon Senyonga is a lawyer, and please, can you speak to our viewers?
Good morning, first of all, Apple and the viewers, my fellow panelists. Thank you so much for having me here today. Again, I think to add a voice to what the good doctor here has said, a congratulatory message to those who are celebrating the Martyrs' Day. Most importantly for me, it's a reflection on the role of religious tourism within Uganda. It's an area which we haven't deliberately exploited or focused on, which plays a very key role. But also the fact that God is at the center of our advancement as a nation is something very important for us to reflect on today. So I congratulate all those who are celebrating the Martyrs' Day, the Anglican, the Catholic Church. And I think for us as a people, this puts also, it shows the significance of Uganda, not only to the religious institutions, but to the world at large. So,
but you said we have not put in much. Government every year camps good billions of money into that project. And if you go to Namgongo today, you'll see and appreciate that a lot has changed. The structures, the ambience, today I think you must agree that
No, I think
we have embraced and moved to exploit this opportunity, this tourism opportunity.
What you're looking at again, Apollo, is that it's limited to the context of the day. I'm talking about the general picture of investing in religious tourism. Not just in the day,
not only
3rd June. There is quite a lot that we can explore in terms of religious or spiritual tourism in the nations. Nations like South Africa, nations like Nigeria have invested quite heavy in it, and that boosts the economy. It gives a new angle, a new perspective to what our tourism has to be beyond just the physical or the natural features. There's quite a lot this nation has to offer in terms of that area of tourism. So for me today, that's where my interest is. Yeah, beyond just the small investments of 3rd June, which is really for the biggest time political expedience, as opposed to...
Actually, I want to really support him. We are talking about only 6th June, Namgongo. How about the matters who were killed in Mayuge? There are places like that. And tourists should not only come during the 3rd of June. This is something that can be made, it becomes a continuous tourism activity. Of course, it can climax with the 3rd June. We have heard of Jaja of Islam here in Nachibinge in Chibuli. Do people know the history of that? You know, the history of that, how significant Chibuli Hill is about the Muslim community in Uganda. Then also having millions of people in Namgongo, the food is being sold down on the ground, the pork is being eaten like in a dirty environment. Can't we improve that?
First, let me introduce Honorable Wasarule, the former Member of Parliament for Rubaga North and former Deputy IGG. It's a pleasure, a senior citizen in the studio today.
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers, and good morning, my fellow panelists. It is a pleasure always coming.
It's a pleasure.
But short walk.
But a comment on what they raised as far as matters day is concerned. They talked about politics. I mean, turning it a political, I don't know, event to some extent. But what can you say about it before I go to another issue of what else we can do about it to make it better, bigger and better?
Well, there were two issues. Making it political for me is not an issue. Politicians, whenever people gather, they seek to get their attention. I think it is natural that the country could invest more in religious tourism. I think that's a very, very positive aspect. Yes, a lot more could be done. Unfortunately, the focus of leaders is not always where they invest, where you get the best return. They always, you get the impression that our leaders, not only this stock but even other stock of leaders, tend to look at things short term. Okay. It's something that sometime in the future, I suppose, could change for the better.
So you also agree with the other panelists that possibly this can be made better and bigger for the interest of this country.
Yes.
For the benefit of this country.
Yeah. And there's a lot of financial rewards. It's just that because they are not immediately apparent, that investment, the level of investment, is not there.
And finally, as we move on from that particular issue, I said it is a time to reflect on possibly what we can, some or anyone can die for, because these matters died for what they believed was right. Do you think in Uganda we still have individuals who have that thing they can really die for?
In any country, at any one time, you always find people who are ready to die for their country. They are there. And they will always be there.
Let me throw it to your neighbor, Simon. Do you think we still have many people in Uganda now who have that conviction and something to die for?
Yeah, I think. I mean, just last week we were discussing a bodyguard of a minister who died for salary. Certainly there are quite a couple of people who
Is that conviction or it's resignation?
I think even just like the matters, they had solid convictions based on, for me, the most important question in the reflection of the matters day is whether people can still stand and possibly die for their religious or spiritual convictions. Because you see, that
Is that true today?
I mean, if you ask me, for myself, yes, for my not just for my convictions, but because I believe that beyond my finite reasoning, my academic qualifications, there is a part of me which is defined by my God-given image, and that cannot be boxed into the corner by my academics, my associations, my anything. There is something that transcends my existence here on the earth, and that's something that I hold so dear. That's something that defines my worldview. That's something that shapes the context of how I perceive issues. So from a personal level, yes. Now within the general Ugandan picture, it's
And even in the religious circles, can we have other matters in future?
I think certainly yes. There is always, as Honorable here has mentioned, there is always a people who are distinguished, people who the Lord calls His remnants. That these ones here will stand for my values, for what I stand for. Now it's also still a contested issue whether really the matters died for their religious values. You know, there is a lot of theory around that, but the general picture is that, and you know, obviously you are very quick to admit, because in Uganda we have generalities. We don't want to interrogate the uncomfortable realities and specifics that really will give us the core and actually even test the authenticity of some of these days. Perhaps it could cause us to rethink whether their existence is relevant. So today also gives us an opportunity to interrogate specifics and discuss the uncomfortable truths which are there. That's what will distinguish us from the general, common, Ugandan who is looking at things with the
Casually.
Casually, yeah.
Okay. Dr. Gerard, as we move on, the same question. Do you think, if you look at the political realm, you look at the religious realm and the actors, do you think we still have individuals who can be martyrs of tomorrow?
Yeah, but it also depends on, like you talked about specifics. If you generalize, sometimes you lose the point. When it comes to politics, for instance, in 2021, we saw about maybe close to 50-something people who were killed because of elections. They had a belief. They believed in their candidate probably, that arresting him in the middle of elections was wrong. So if maybe that there's a government in the future led by this group, probably this would be made heroes and celebrated for having died. Exactly. Now when you come to the religious aspect, I will not beat around the bush. I saw one pastor who was saying that if they don't give them money, support the churches, they will pick money from the homosexuals. He was on record. But we have some pastors like Pastor Bujingo who are not afraid of standing at the Canaan land and speaking strongly against homosexuality. Because of the values he holds about the family, about the marriage between man and woman, not between man and man, and then about the preservation of the humanity. And then, of course, the cultural values. So you will always find such people.
Thank you so much, our viewers, and you can be part of this discussion. You'll use our WhatsApp line 0701-609906 and send in your comment or contribution on the issues at hand. And you can only send a message. Don't send a voice note. Don't send don't call in. And you can also send one usual SMS short messages using that short messaging platform and be part of this discussion. And now we can, of course, move on to the main topics for discussion. I must tell you that the aftershocks and after that signing of the anti-homosexuality bill 2023 are still real in this country, especially from the Western countries coming out to threaten withdrawal of aid, and also threatening to impose sanctions, and not actually threatening. We all know that after the signing of the law, a visa was cancelled. Visas for one of the prominent leaders in this country were cancelled. And of course, as our main topic of discussion this morning, we'll be looking at the implications of signing this law, of course adopting this legislation, and possibly how our country, Uganda, is prepared to mitigate those implications. But before we do that, let's go straight to what is happening in Changwanzi, what really happened 2 days ago in Munyonyo. The political formations are actually very busy, and you ask yourself, is 2026 just coming early or not? Well, going to Changwanzi, we were told in a press conference, we were told it is all out PDM, Parish Development Model, and Emyoga, evaluating those government programs. But of course, a lot is coming out of Changwanzi. We have seen the president talk about, for the first time, the Mhozi project, and he says those actually who are running around with General Mhozi Kainerugaba, I think it's a big statement. We're after money. They're after money. And he said he has no problem with Mhozi Kainerugaba because his group is now filling the void that had been created by the NRM, the NRM party not being active. They are filling that void and not going out to the people. Jared, Dr. Jared Wansala, I think you take the first shot. What do you think is going on in Changwanzi, and what do you expect from Changwanzi?
From Changwanzi, there is nothing really much that I expect from there, but I will comment on a number of, because a number of things he said, he has already talked about them. For instance, sensitizing the MPs about the PDM, and then also warning them that they should not become the providers of services or problem solvers of constituents, because it is not their role. It will make them become vulnerable to corruption. And when he tells them that, I think that is very important. We have always said it here, that because of the gap in service delivery and any failure by the MPs to do their critical job of holding government accountable and doing oversight in terms of service delivery, they have become the shock absorbers. I remember, I was quite young, but I followed when they were in the parliament. At that time, even bribery was not there when they were campaigning. The salary was very little, but we had quality people in parliament. But as long as MPs started positioning themselves as the people who give school fees, who repair bridges and so forth, they increased their pay, but in the minds of the voters, they shifted the responsibility. I see on my group, Namisindwa group, every day people are already campaigning for some for 2026, saying, oh, this one is not delivering, he has not built a road, he has not, but this is the role of government. So it makes MPs very vulnerable, prone to bribery, and then they become sycophants of the leadership of parliament, begging for trips. When Honorable Sikandi was a Speaker of Parliament, the role of allocating who travels abroad was done by the office of the clerk. They would identify if there is a gap in capacity building, they choose which particular member of parliament to go. But today, including the Honorable Kadaga's time, you would find 100 MPs begging to be put on the trips to travel. So that makes members of parliament vulnerable. Even if you increase each one's salary to 100 million, still the turnover will be very high because they will not meet the demands of the citizens. So if the president says, don't substitute your role, okay, and you become a provider of the constituency, I agree with him.
Is it the Kenyan president who warned the legislators in Kenya from turning themselves into ATMs?
Yes, but again in Kenya,
machines.
There is a way the state institution has helped the incumbent MPs to stay there for long by increasing, making a big pack for constituency development fund,
CDF.
And then the MP becomes the chairperson of the CDF, and therefore there's a CDF committee. So the money is quite big, and if you are an incumbent, really, if you manage to use it well, you may not be uprooted in the constituency. So I think there's a way they have managed that one to the state to shoulder the pressure. Now here we had a constituency development fund of only 10 million. I traveled to a number of constituencies. That time there was Ben Wacha in Oyam North, there were others. So some had created committees and were putting this 10 million in education fund, supporting secondary school children. And there were quite a number, at least to improve education. But to many areas where I went to, the MPs turned that into pocket money. And it created a problem for the Honorable Bihande in Kasese when he forged accountability. And then actually after our meeting, that's when people went to court. And then they petitioned the court, they got evidence from parliament that the accountability was fake and it was bad from campaigning, contesting again for about 5 years. So back to Chankwazi.
So you think Chankwazi is predominantly for sensitizing MPs on these crucial development programs?
Yeah, I saw one is that, sensitizing them. But two, of course, also, you know, we have just come from the anti-gay bill, where the MPs passed a bill, and then the president had disagreements, then there was consensus, and then the bill was passed. So partly these retreats help to panel beat the MPs to toe the party line. So the more you meet them, you engage them, you saw them cheering. For instance, they had an opportunity to raise the issue of General Muhoozi. They were saying, we are confused, we don't know, we have Mzee Tova Kumei, we are saying Tova Kumei. Then we have Buganda for Museveni, then we have, you know, now MK project, you know, so they were saying we are confused. So I think he used the same opportunity to say that, look, what you have just said, that this is a group of self-seekers, the selfish interests, some of them are criminals, but you see, then, I think last week is when I told people that the President Museveni is going to be the candidate for NRM.
No,
in 2026.
Somebody predicted that out of Chankwazi, a resolution will come declaring Yoweri Museveni the sole candidate for NRM in 2026.
Yes, and of course he also has capacity to contain his son. First is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. If he has not deployed you, if he has not given you the resources, where will you go? But like we said last week, I said here, that towards 2025, you will see a convergence of all these forces, MK Project, Mzee Tova Kumei, together.
Okay.
And then they will be campaigning for President Yoweri Museveni in 2026.
Oh.
Yes.
All right, that is your opinion. And let's speak your opinion, Simon, on what is happening in Chankwazi and what you expect from Chankwazi.
I think, first of all, the expectations of the Ugandans from Chankwazi are never defined. The expectations are more from the beneficiaries of Chankwanzi. So the idea is that, number one, let's have heavy indoctrination, okay, happening there. Perhaps a refresher course on indoctrination of what at least apparently the party would be standing for. Now, you talk about the selective I know I'm trying to look for very courteous language, not to call it selective amnesia of some of the leaders, but I want to refer to the instance that, for example, where Mr. Museveni is talking about the selfishness of those who are around General Muhoozi. Number one, somebody threw another perspective to it. That, okay, you're talking about, I think it was Daudi Kabanda, who said, you're talking about the selfishness of those around Muhoozi. What of those who are around you? Quite a number of them. So in any way, you are not exonerated. Number two, when you talk about some of those, the isolated incidents that they're talking about, say, in terms of the power play, General Muhoozi, what you're seeing right now is Mr. Museveni consolidating a system that he has put in place, which causes actually the confusion in terms of the power. There are various power centers in Uganda, and that's how the system currently politically is being run. That you have a very powerful deep state, and then you're having a very weak, governance, at least unelected governance system. So what you see in Chankwanzi still is that Mr. Museveni is the center of discussion, the center of hope, even from those who are supposed to be leaders. When he wants them, for example, and guides them about the parish development model, my expectation as a Uganda could be that a resolution should come from Chankwanzi that a policy is going to be developed to support PDM. Because PDM has no supportive policy. It is being run like any other loose government program, just like how you saw Myoga, just like how you saw the OWC, how you saw the Women Development, I think, Fund or something.
But I think the policy is there, because we know even a document was developed on how it has the 7 pillars, the mindset.
Maybe let me
It is a kind of a program design.
Let me make it clear that because there are a lot of resources going into this, there has to be a supportive law.
Okay.
Because you see, when you look at all the reviews of all the previous empowerment programs set up by government, the missing link has been a supportive law.
Oh.
Okay. Now, the moment you don't have a supportive law, that is where you're going to have you had him in Chankwanzi warning, I think, the 2 ministers, Kasolo and I forget the other one, warning them about not misleading.
Yeah.
Now, if there was a proper legislation, there could have been proper guidance. Because by and large, the president shouldn't be the one dictating over such a program. But now it's like a small household family program. And it's being used as a tool.
I think you are right.
As a tool of empowering those.
Because we are pumping in billions now of money.
Quite a lot, because they call this their golden bullet. When you read the NRM manifesto for the year 2021 to the year 2026, they're calling it their golden bullet. They're investing quite a lot. They're saying they're investing quite a lot in human capital development. So for me, those are some of the solid discussions I would be having from the NRM parliamentary caucus. But you see, unfortunately, that's not what I think they're interested in. So I think Chankwanzi, we expect more consolidation of power towards the interests of minority group of people. And by the way, that in no way guarantees their return to parliament even. Because there's been quite a lot of these retreats. So they seem, at least they benefit mainly those in, the members of parliament, but at a very minimal level, the Ugandan. Now, counter that with what happened maybe in Munyonyo.
We'll get to
that.
We'll get to that. But I wanted to ask you if you hope possibly we will see what we saw in 2014 when Evelyn Anite kneeled down and begged the president to run as a sole candidate in
No.
2016.
You choose a very interesting timing, and you know that in 2014, that is the time when we had the first Anti-Homosexuality Act
Yeah, true.
introduced.
Yeah, true.
2023, you also have the Anti-Homosexuality Act introduced. I think the relatable events, apart from those, could be again a posturing. There was still a power conflict, right? Ahead of the 2016 elections, still there's a power conflict ahead of the... Now, 2014, again, the forces of change within we're talking about, you know, at both levels, NRM. The forces of change 2014 was that the threat of Amama Mbabazi coming out as a potential force. The forces of change now,
Here is MK.
you're having MK. The difference between the two forces of change is that number one seems to be external, but still
But
facilitated
they are all internal.
by the internal forces,
Internal.
because you have the Mawandas, the Kabandas, that select group of individuals. Then you also had a super minister who had benefited from the unique crafting of the...
Here we have the first son.
Oh, and here you have the first son. But maybe the other isolated event, most of them may not be reading into. 2014, you had the super minister introducing a law that he thought would be curtailing his opponents, the Interception of Communications Act,
Yes.
hoping that they could spy. But it was the same law that was eventually used on him. Now, in this year, the counter is that you have the Anti-Homosexuality Act. Many of them passed it excitedly. They don't know that actually it's going to be used against them.
Really?
Should they find that they are towing a wrong line?
Really?
Certainly, when you get to that discussion, you'll
We'll
get to
get
see
to it,
how they will actually use it
implications.
against them. Yeah.
Thank you.
What would be it,
Honorable.
I guess, huh?
The Anti-Homosexuality Act.
Oh, yeah. Very good. I'm glad you've observed that.
Yeah, Honorable, let's speak your opinion on what is happening. I said, could 2026 be coming early?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
When you talk about what's happening in Chankwanza, it's about 2026
Really?
and paving the way for 2026.
That's what you see?
For me, it's 100% clear. You have to also look at it in the light of that we're in a sort of transition. I think there's a recognition within the ruling circles that the leadership is aging, and something has got to be done. And there's been a testing of the ground, and you've seen what happened in Namutumba and now in Masaka. And parish development model was supposed to be a vehicle to 2026. If you go back, parish development model and similar models have been used as an avenue of siphoning money out of the government for selected individuals, not for the benefit of people,
Ugandans.
not for the benefit of Ugandans. This time round, there's the intention of greasing the hands of Ugandans, because it has been realized that the ground is a bit sticky, if not very sticky. And you can see that I've talked about Namutumba, which is in Busoga. That was a sticky ground during the election. I saw the day before the president went to Namutumba, there's this lady, Hajat Namiaro. She was dishing out goodies to the public. The following day, the president goes, and I look for the same crowds that were there the day before. Maybe now they were looking after their chicken and goats and whatever, but they were not there. And the ground was almost empty. And after a while, I saw in the background people coming in, but coming in with such haste, you could see that they were being almost herded in. Right. So, despite all the goodies that were given out, the reception for the presidency on the next day reflects something else. So, parish development model was supposed to soften the ground. What is on the ground? I was at a burial about 3 weeks back, and people who came from the Luweero area. There were some relatives of the people who went to bury. And they were saying, and they were youthful people, we're not going to go for parish development model. We're fed up.
Reason?
It's all about promises. If you go back over the years, they've been promised hell and high waters. You go, they register you, they tell you to form groups, and then at the last minute, the other groups are formed, and some people come and they take the money. Yes, and on paper, the people in that area have received the money, not the people in that area. So now that they are fed up, now that the government intends, because they know that the ground is what it likes, to pay these people money, these people are no longer ready to receive it. I was in Buganda Land Board. There was a land transaction I went there for. And as I was waiting at the reception, an old man came and sat next to me. And he started talking about these programs, from Ntandikwa to date. And he started saying, in fact, I don't know why I didn't bring those notes. He started off by saying we were promised housing. And people were promised houses. Then he went through the different programs, name by name, Operation Wealth Creation in Ntandikwa. And Ntandikwa is probably the one where the members of the public actually received money. But even within the ruling NRM, it's only a small clique that gets, not even the others. But he went through the programs one by one. They were promised salaries, they were promised housing, then he went through these programs. They got nothing. He would have been that old man. He said, I would have been happy if I could get something and I could do these programs and whatever. But the point is, from historically, these have been instruments of stealing from the state.
Really?
Oh yeah, there are very many. It's a bit like this.
But this one,
it's a bit like this. Before I forget,
okay.
Like the Mabati. We talk about Mabati. The program has been going on, and you saw that the Mabati were shared out. Let me take you back to Mabati history. On television, the Prime Minister is saying, I didn't get Mabati from Karamoja, she stumbled somewhere. And then she talks about Northern program. There's a member of parliament who said, no, me, I never got from the Karamoja fund. I got from the Northern fund. Under the Prime Minister's office, you've got the Northern fund, you've got the Karamoja fund, you've got the Luweero fund. All of those have been stolen. Go to Luweero and ask people who has received this Mabati.
So you say
the government programs.
Many say of all these programs
many government
to facilitate
programs
siphoning of public funds. That's what you say.
Look at the budget. It's a telling. It's a telling story by itself.
So you mean that even Chankwanzi being tagged as a retreat to sensitize MPs about parish development model and the Myoga is all a hoax.
No. It's not a hoax. This is what I'm telling you, that this time around, when they are ready to give the money to the people, so that the people can be happy and they change their attitude, the people are no longer. So they are looking for avenues. How do we get the people to first of all accept this money, and then to change their outlook towards the government? So there's something genuine behind the retreat. It's just that historically, the historical experience has alienated the government and the powers that be from the public. It's because they've been hoodwinking people for years and years and years. Go into Luweero and look for a tarmac road.
Okay.
The mecca of the NRM. Right? For me, it pains me.
I get you.
And I'll tell you why it pains me, because this NRM, where it came from. First of all, my father was the first chairman.
Your father was the founder.
Yes. And I myself, it's part of the origins of even this war. Even when President Museveni was still here in Kampala when he was the Minister of Defense. And my father, when he was freed from Tanzania, I took him to Libya. When these people are still eating sausages here in what? in Kampala. So you're now looking at the origins of where it all started. Eventually they ended up together, and when it ended up in one movement. But it's painful to see the deceit over the years and where it is headed to be a personal asset.
You don't see anything new about, I mean, anything new about PDM and...
No. I'm telling you that there's a difference, but the people are so fed up they don't want to know.
All right.
That's what I'm saying. And it is really unfortunate that after 40, it's not only that. Look at the reparations to the people in Luwero. People died. People who participated in the war have never been given reparations. I won't even go far. I have members of my family, members of the Lule family, right? I don't remember.
Anyone who was compensated?
Yeah, they will tell you, oh, you were made deputy IDD, so-and-so has made an RDC, but there are no reparations, right? People died. I have brothers and sisters who died, right? Who died for this country. And they have been totally ignored.
Thank you, Honorable.
Yes, but anyway, as I said, the intention I can see, because being a politician, I can see the signs. And there's desperation to see that people get this money.
Exactly.
But unfortunately, there's something, and the people are stuck where they are.
That is
they
what
are not prepared to get.
That's exactly what I now want to take to Dr. Jared Wanzala. Honorable Rulez thinks that there is an intention.
There's something we mentioned about this Constituency Development Fund. The first time that Constituency Development Fund, the suggestion came, I was still in Parliament. We shut it down. And we shut it down for the... Yes. When it was suggested.
It was later.
It was later after we left. It was later, but we shut it down because, and I was very clear about that myself. It is not the role of. Now, the reason why President Museveni is shooting down MPs for providing all these services at this time, and he has never done it before, and it has been going on, is because they're now competing with the parish development model.
Really?
Yes, right. He wants the money to get there, and he sees this as competition.
Good.
Right. That is part of the stiffness that is in the issue. He wants to oil the road.
That is where I want you, the doctor, to come in. Honorable Rule thinks President Museveni and possibly his government are now. It's the intention to give the money to the people and possibly. Make them forget whatever happened and targeting 2026. I don't know if I got you right. That's what he says. Do you find truth in what he says?
One particular issue that I want to agree with him is that usually, whether in a situation where individuals change and the same political party remains in power, like the CCM, they always look at the next election. When you look at the manifesto, it always looks at the next election. Now, what challenges did the president find out last time? He told you about the massive poverty. You know, sometimes when you are here, and you know these technocrats who take the politicians around know how to take them to craft routes, so that when you pass, you see a good house, you see a good road, and you say, I'm working so hard. But this time when the president went, he saw a lot of poverty. And of course, the Uganda National Bureau of Statistics is speaking about the same poverty. If you look at northern Uganda, the highest poverty rates in the country, 66%. You come to Busoga. Busoga has been very peaceful. But the trends show that since they focus so much on sugarcane, Mayuge sugar, Kamuli sugar, Kakira expanding, almost every district in Busoga has a sugar factory. And then you saw people shifting from agriculture, which was giving them money, to sugarcane. Now sugarcane, the disease in the sugarcane was that permits are issued to middlemen. So the farmer cannot supply the sugarcane to the factory. So what?
Hasn't the recently enacted sugar bill cured all those?
It has not cured. You go there, you will find people frustrated still with the sugarcane. But I'm quoting 2021. The situation was there, and the reason why places like Kamuli, Mayuge voted Bobby Wine, Luuka, it was because of the sugarcane politics. Now, what does the president say? That the statistics are saying there are 39% who are out of the money economy. And therefore, for them to get there, what do we need? That's when he comes up with this number of pillars through that program. Of course, this program is not new. I saw the sub-county model in Amama Mbabazi's manifesto. For him, wanted to focus on the sub-county with the bank, social services, to make the sub-county the epicenter. But the president said, the parish. Now we got the parish. We had parish-based information system that the government, through parish chiefs, should gather data directly at the lowest possible level. 2, that there it is easy to identify the poor households. 3, they're talking of developing the agricultural value chain from production to value addition to marketing. They're talking of mindset change, influencing the mindset at that level. But now, what do we do? What do we see? The reason why I would like to agree with the Honorable Waswarule is because I am seeing the focus is on financial inclusion. Sending money, but the other
let me now
aspects.
ask you this question as we move on to the next break. What's wrong with getting people, even if the intention is giving them money for other reasons? What's wrong with them giving them money if they can get out of poverty? If their livelihood can get better?
I think let me approach that one in this way.
Louis.
Apollo, in the history of say cooperatives and circles, the most successful ones have been those crafted by similar people in a common economic activity with a common objective. Do you know why Bugisu Cooperative Union is successful? Because people discuss coffee, how to grow coffee, how to take care of a coffee garden, how to get inputs, and then how to market the coffee. So they have a common objective. If you go to Chiruhura, the number of dairy groups, you'll find them collecting their milk, the tankers are taking.
So can PDM actually...
the transporters.
Wait, what you're talking about?
No, the reason why PDM actually is at a risk. You cannot bring a prostitute together with a teacher, with a farmer, with a border rider. They are different.
It's a deception. You see what you are describing there of these people getting together, they own it.
Exactly.
This one, they don't own it, and there are middlemen in between.
I think what he's trying to do with MPs is to tell the people to own this program.
No. You see, first of all, there's no program similar to these ones in Tandikwa, Operation Wealth Creation, whatever, that has ever succeeded anywhere in this world. Just bring one example.
That is why they want to make PDM different.
What I'm trying to say,
and unique.
If it has never succeeded anywhere in this world, right? What magic do you have if the only success you can have is bringing an economy to its knees, and you're telling me that PDM will succeed if it has failed elsewhere in the world? So that statistic alone tells you something, that even though it is done as PDM, with all the good intention that the man should get there, but it is not intended to bring people out of wealth, because it is known that it has never succeeded anywhere in the world.
Thank you so much, Honorable Waswarule, and he is the former Member of Parliament for Rubaga North and former Deputy Inspectorate General of Governments. We'll be going for a short break, but when we return, we'll conclude on the issue of retreats, because the opposition also had a retreat in Munyonyo, and it's all about constitutional and electoral reforms. When we come back again, our main topic will be the implications of the adopting the anti-gay law. Is Uganda ready for the consequences? Let's go for a break and return after this short while. Welcome from the break. This is The Dialogue, the big show, and we have Dr. Jared Wansara, a researcher at Africa Leadership Institute. He is in the studios. We have Simon Senyonga, lawyer, and he's also with us in the studios, senior citizen and a former member of parliament for Rubaga North, Honorable Wasarule, is also in the studios looking at the political developments in this country, especially around this time when we have different political formations very busy in retreats. And we talked about the retreat of the NRM Parliamentary Caucus in Chankwazi, summoned by His Excellency the President. But now let's go to Munyonyo, where the opposition had a 2-day retreat focusing on constitutional and electoral reforms. At the end of the retreat, they said they are now going to embark on consultations, and of course an array of proposals were raised in that particular retreat, rotating around electoral reforms and a process how we can have a constitutional review commission in place to look at those amendments, and others actually proposing to again push government on how electoral reforms can be effected. One particular incident I can allude to is when Dr. Retired Kano Kizadesje told them that all that they are planning cannot work in this country, because even if they call for reforms and then under this dispensation, nothing can work. And for him, he was of the view that they should be looking at other means of pushing this government out and possibly bringing in a new or ushering in a new order. Let me again start with Dr. Jared Wansara. Or it is, anyway, you can start and then I'll get to Simon. What do you think and what did you expect from Munyonyo, and possibly at the end of the day, what do you think came out of Munyonyo?
Apple, and to my viewers, our viewers out there, it's not the first time that we are discussing the electoral reforms in this country. I think I was abroad studying in 2014 when the civil society and the opposition came up with what they called the Citizens' Compact on electoral reforms that they wanted the government to implement in order to have a free, fair, and peaceful 2016 elections. And also, maybe to go back a bit, we know that in the case of Kizza Besigye versus Museveni, Yoweri Museveni in 2001 and 2006, there were a number of electoral reforms that the Supreme Court proposed. And also what was more significant to me was the court ruling in Amama Mbabazi versus Yoweri Museveni after 2016 elections. There were a number of electoral reforms that the Supreme Court directed. Actually, they did not request. I know a directive of a Supreme Court is like a law. So there are things to do with the under multi-party dispensation. Isn't it the right time that the army left parliament? What we hear is that they are listening posts. Can't they listen when they are out there? They do media monitoring, they monitor everything. Can they listen from there and maybe focus on politics, ideology, siyasa in the army? And then two, there have been issues of regulating campaign financing, that money comes from wherever and is poured into elections, And at the end of the day, you cannot account on the source of the money, you know, how much you used of that. And these laws in strong democracies are very important. The other aspects are to do with that now there are people, the young people who are agitating. Isn't it the right time we changed from electoral college of electing youth representatives in parliament to universal adult suffrage? I have been doing a study on that particular one, and I think they have a point where they say the electoral college, you have a very young population, okay, people below 30, almost 75% of the country, and then you have an electoral college of 600 people electing a member of parliament for the youth. And what are the problems they are raising? That there is bribery.
Yeah.
They buy the electoral commission starves the delegates, then the other parties with money come in and bribe everybody, and at the end of the day there's no competition.
It's now common knowledge
One
that
political party
are very expensive processes.
exactly.
Processes.
So there is things like that. The behavior of the police. We have the Police Act, sections of the Police Act were nullified. We introduced the similar law under the Public Order Management Act. There were all sections were also nullified in the case of Mwanga Chivumbi versus the Attorney General. But the police continues to behave in the same way. That's why the opposition cannot meet, cannot fundraise, cannot hold rallies, and so forth. So there are a number of them. And but now, my question:
are you suggesting that the retreat, the opposition retreat, does not bring anything new?
Basically, I'm not seeing anything new except what strategy is the civil society going to use, the opposition and other Ugandans, to ensure that the majority in the parliament understand that having a good election is also good for them. Like this issue of money, for instance. The incumbents in the parliament have been increasing nomination fees, thinking they want to lock out others. But our trends show that actually, even as they increase, the turnover in the parliament is over 70%. 70% don't turn, but they don't return. Is that in the time that people should have common sense and know that they can no longer use money to block others and create an environment where people can compete.
Okay, let me pick your opinion, Simon. What did you expect from Munyonyo, and what actually came out of Munyonyo retreat?
First of all, again, the same standard should measure with the NRM. The assumption is that when the opposition sits, it's aspiring to represent at least the downtrodden, or what one author called the wretched of the earth. But certainly, number one, what do you talk about an opposition which is highly greased by the ruling party? You know, majority of we don't have really an opposition. Majority of them.
I saw UPC there. I saw DP there.
But UP are part of NRM.
They are part of the system. I think they have taken a path of working together with NRM, having realized that the political situation in Uganda does not really favor existence of a multi-party democracy. That in a multi-party democracy, you're going to have full functionality of all political parties without sabotage, without frustration of the ruling party. The assumption is that that conference or meeting is going to play out on a fair ground, which is quite unfortunate. And that is why you can commend DP and UPC for realizing quite early. And then some may call it selling out, others may call it cooperating.
But then why still continue to pretend that they are opposition then?
No, I don't think there is a pretense. I think there is a new, first of all, we are coming from a historical background where first of all we are intolerant to new perspectives of politics. Now, when you listen to the argument, for example, of Honorable Mao concerning working with Mr. Museveni, he says the time has come, knowing that the political trajectory we have in the country, let us cooperate on specific issues that we think will be important for the nation. Let us cooperate in making sure that we work together with the government, perhaps to cause a constitutional change, okay? Because they have the majority. So there is honest discussion, and the pretense is not only with those, by the way, who are choosing to work with government. The pretense also applies with those who are deliberately thinking that the government is going to favor them in coexisting with them. You talk about reforms and what has to be executed. I mean, my brother here is making, as I said, is making a study on electoral college. I was a candidate in 2021 for the Youth MP Central Region. So you have to traverse.
You saw it all.
I mean, I saw it all. I was at the thick of things. You have to traverse. A young man, this is a 25-year-old, having to traverse about 30 districts in Central Region, 225 sub-counties, looking for 3 people. A chairperson, a treasurer, a secretary of family affairs. Not even anywhere, I mean, by no means to underestimate anybody, not anywhere even close to the level of education you are going in for. You will reach there on the ground. What are they telling you? We don't know you so well. You're not. Our election was unique because it happened during the COVID-19 times. So everybody who was non-NRM was out because remember there were curfews. So the state machinery was facilitating only those who are within the NRM. Each of our opponents, I mean NRM opponents, was given a double cabin, free fuel across all the districts. All security structures within the district
completely
were made
unleveled ground.
On election day, towards election day, elections had to happen in Masaka. 24 hours to the election, actually 12 hours to the election, elections were shifted to Mitiana. You know what that means? Because after you've invested in booking for your delegates, because you have to quote delegates, you've booked for them in one hotel, then they tell you you're going to another district, which is very many miles. On reaching to book in the next district, all hotels are majorly owned by NRM people. And for them, they had a directive from the party that make sure no one books there in Mubende. Actually, the issue of Masaka to Mubende. So I'm trying to give you context for that discussion that's happening.
But I wonder how his proposal now can be a solution to what is happening. The alternative of added suffrage. Actually, I look at it as one that would be much more expensive than what you're talking about.
But it's much more fair.
Really?
It's much more representative.
But in terms of execution, won't it be expensive?
The thing is that for me, first of all, unless I would first of all deal with the whole issue of, how do you call them? These unique categories of special interest groups.
Yeah.
I would definitely first of all deal with them because they are of no value. Majority of our parliament is
now
young.
I see what
and
you're saying.
if it's young, they should be able at least to aspire. If you are going to choose the path of special interest groups, my opinion is that then increase them per region. To represent, for example, Uganda has sub-regions. Have one for Greater Masaka, have one for Greater Mubende, have one for the central, Kampala, Mukono, all those. Now, that's what I would think about. That would be more representative if that's your intention. Then reduce the general MPs per constituency. But let me finalize with this.
Back to what happened in Munyonyo.
I think there's a time when the opposition told a path which I thought was correct, if at all its intention was to cause substantive change in the nation. So, I'm sure Honorable Lule here was alive. I don't know, I'm sure in the 1960s he was around. There was a very interesting case that was decided, which was called Uganda versus Commission of Prisons ex parte Matov. The idea behind that case is that there was a change of government and there was an overthrow of the constitutional order. So the courts of law said, as long as you're using legitimate means within the constitution, you can overthrow a constitutional order and introduce a new constitutional order. Now, under Article 3 of our constitution, there is a provision which says that actually you are allowed by law to actually overturn a government for legitimate reasons, among which include underestimating and underestimating the constitution. So Article 3, there was a time when FDC, I think,
Undermining.
they undermined the Constitution. They took on the role of propagating Article 3. They were evoking the citizens to use their rights under the Constitution to pursue Article 3 to overthrow the regime.
Either through civil uprising or...
Either through civil uprising, in the case of ex-parte Matovu, it was through actually not civil uprising.
So what
it was a military contestation.
You're saying what has been proposed in Munyonyo cannot work? Cannot...
It cannot definitely work. But I think they have an option of Article 3. It's only that it's a very high road that many of them would want to
So you agree with Dr. Kizabesije that possibly those boardroom meetings cannot change anything?
Unless, again, the challenge we face in our politics is majority of the politicians want to be part of the general statistic. They are not intending to make a distinguished contribution, which may be dangerous, but actually is significant. That when I tell that there is a constitutional order we have, so if you talk about the Constitution, Article 3 gives you an option as politicians to overturn a regime because of undermining the Constitution. That option is there, but nobody would want to talk about it. But it is actually there.
Yeah.
Or you take the path of what DP has appreciated, that take cooperation as one of the forms after realizing the real contest that you're dealing with. That's why I was referring you to my experience. That experience comes alive to this one fact, that you're not dealing on fair ground. So if you're going to make reforms, if you intend to make reforms, unless you intend to be part of the general statistic of those who attend a retreat in some boardrooms and you get some allowance, okay, there is no really, there's no meaningful substantive change.
Okay.
I would expect that, for example, Mr. Besije would, refer them to what, when he was exiting the party in 1999, the communique that he made.
The dossier.
Yes, the dossier that highlighted clearly what he called the dishonesty of the NRM party, to evoke their thoughts and to evoke historical context in what exactly the path they're choosing to pursue.
Okay. So in Uganda's context of today, you also think taking the Norbert Mao's path is an alternative to cooperate with government and possibly cause change from within?
I think certainly it could be it's a first step. Now the danger also we have with many of our politicians, and again in relation to that, is that we are not yet open, and as I said, we are quite intolerant in having alternative discussion, which could make you potentially vulnerable. So we are always approaching things from the place of insecurity. Others will call it, in a more positive language, a guarded approach. But most of the times that guarded approach actually communicates more of your insecurities. The thing is that in our generation, majority of our, the biggest demographic are young people. The image that you're going to put before them is that, look here, choose the path of intolerance. Anybody who tries to cooperate has to be treated as one who is an alien.
Oh yeah. Well, viewers, it is time you send in your comments and contribution on the topics that are actually being discussed in the studios.
You forgot some.
Send, I'm coming. Send your WhatsApp message on 0701 609906. Tell us what you think about these retreats, the one in Munyonyo, one in Chankwanzi, and what actually you expected from these retreats and the outcomes. For instance, this 2-day retreat that has been concluded in Munyonyo. What do you think about what do you think could be outcomes of such a retreat? Suppose now they said they are embarking on nationwide consultations on what will again make up those constitutional proposals or amendments. But like Dr. Gerard Wanzala reminded us, there was that time when a particular process was done and the Citizen Compact was made. I remember I was part of the people who were invited to launch it at Africana, but until today, all those...
Actually, they only changed the name of the Electoral Commission in 2015 from electoral to Independent Electoral Commission.
Honorable Waswa, give us your opinion on what happened in Munyonyo.
I'm glad that there's somebody here who has gone through the Electoral College process and understands the difficulties, and they're immense. What I disagree with him is increasing the number of those interest groups, which means increasing more electoral college elections as opposed to the universal. Either you make them all universal, because the difficulties you found were in the electoral college system. It's rigged against you, and there's nothing you can do about that. So my advice is run away from the electoral college, right? And if ever
Then what is the alternative? Adult suffrage?
Adult suffrage.
Okay.
It is less likely to be rigged.
You subject a 22-year-old
the whole purpose why these
who
systems
aspires to be a youth leader
Yeah.
to the whole country.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
or in
easier.
the regions.
It is easier and it is cheaper.
If someone is representing,
It's easier.
yes,
It
in
is
the region,
easier and it is cheaper.
hold the
You
rallies in
don't,
the
because if you're dealing with the whole population, you won't go through the experience that he's talking about
yeah.
of having to house delegates, right?
Yeah.
Those are extreme.
some people hide
expenses.
away the
And-
delegates.
and you're
Actually, that happened.
Yeah, you're competing with people who have given government vehicles, government resources, and whatever. When you're dealing with the whole population, you're now not going to house anybody. You deal with different pressures. So that's my advice. Now, going into Munyonyo, you see, when people in Munyonyo discuss electoral reforms, know that their agenda was not set by themselves.
Really?
Yes, it was set by the opposition. And I'll tell you the reason why.
It was set by?
The opposition. Their opposition.
Oh.
Yes. Now, I would not recommend that the opposition asks for electoral reforms in a situation where they're unable to prevent the other side putting in their reforms. You can open up thinking that you're going to put in your issues, but you must recognize the fact that there are issues that are now going to be put in the changes that are coming from the other side. Are you prepared to stomach them? And the fact that the request for reforms is coming from this side legitimizes the aspirations of the other side. We know that because of the ground that we talked about, the stability, going to the ground has become a bit more difficult, and it can become more difficult. If you're in a situation of transition and you're looking at alternative leadership, not the entrenched leadership that is there, it is even stickier to market a different individual, right, around the country in this situation. If somebody can smuggle in an electoral reform for the parliament to become an electoral college, can you imagine what is likely to happen? Anybody who is sponsored by the ruling group becomes president automatically. So those are the dangers. You've got to look at the dangers, not to look at what you are aspiring. If you can't get what you want to get into the constitution in this environment, and this is why I agree with Dr. Besigye, that yes, there is no likelihood that you'll get the changes that you want. But there's even worse still, what he doesn't say is that there's a bigger likelihood is that you'll get changes that you will detest more than the situation that is this here. Yeah. Where I disagree with Dr. Besigye is his constant reference to the alternative, the clause 3 of the Constitution that you referred to. You see, whenever you even NUP leadership, Kyagulanyi, in his campaign talked of Plan B and whatever. If you are not prepared to go to war, don't talk about it.
Really?
That's what I'm saying. If you're not,
but then you have to.
Let me finish the argument.
You have to tell the
Let me finish the argument. If you
want them hope.
Look, my friend, if you saw this film, the Clint Eastwood movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Eli Wallach was in a bathtub full of soap suds, and his enemy came in. He said, "Now I found him naked." He's not knowing that he had a gun under the soap sud, and he said a lot of things. "I've got you," And this man just pulled out the gun and shot him. Right? If you're going to, don't talk.
If you cannot,
if you're going to bite,
sustain a
don't.
war.
If you're going to bite, don't talk. Don't talk about it, right? The people who talk about it, now this is where now I'm going into accusatory mode. The people who talk about war activities, Plan B.
But
and
is it a war
let me
or
finish.
it is
Let
an
me
uprising?
Let me finish my statement because it's a very serious accusation. The people who talk about people taking Plan B, right, or an uprising,
Massive uprising.
right? Then they put on busutis and go to South Africa and whatever. Cause other people who are militant, who now come out to be apprehended and many have disappeared. That is the job that they are doing for the state.
Okay.
They are smoking out.
Honorable.
It's a very serious thing. They are smoking out the people with militant attitudes for the state to pick up. Right.
And drones will do their work.
And drones will do their work. But they are doing that work for the drones. And they're doing it knowing because they're seasoned
Honorable,
politicians.
let me ask you. You as a senior citizen, you have seen it all here.
Yes.
In your opinion, in today's context, if we are part of that retreat, what would you table as an alternative?
I would not table constitutional reforms. I would discuss strategies, right? But I would not table constitutional reform as one of my strategies. That I would definitely not do.
You because talk about
the environment doesn't favor you.
Now,
your capacity and willingness, your capacity
and
willingness as members of parliament, as a collective, right, is clear in your track record. The achievements of the parliament of today, if you compare it to the achievements of parliaments of yesterday, it's nothing. It's almost as if they're not there. Right? There are very many things where you should look at the activities of Parliament and look beyond what you see on the surface. You were talking about what we're going to is that the other bill, the homosexuality bill.
We want to go right.
Yeah, it was on for discussion. It was presented by a member of the opposition. The probability of a member of the opposition bringing a private member's bill and passing it through without the approval of government is zero. So the government is a beneficiary because you have done their dirty work for them, right? So you have to look at beyond what you see on the surface. There's no way. Basario has brought a bill, Nsereko brought a bill, right? And other members of the opposition bringing private members' bill know that the government is behind that drafting. And you'll also see how wishy-washy it is and why it is like that.
Finally, from you, do you think the opposition have, if they cannot hold a retreat like they did, and have positive outcomes, do they have an alternative, or are they providing an alternative?
They have the opportunity to provide an alternative. They have the opportunity to strategize. They have an opportunity to bring themselves together. But that retreat, I saw Sarah Musumba on television. She was not invited. I didn't see Amuriat. There?
Amuriat,
That
I
was
saw
on the first day.
Was he?
on the first day.
He was there. But anyway, there's some, from what I understand, not everybody was welcome. If you're whether you agree or disagree with people, bring them all in, give them invitations, and go and disagree on the floor.
Okay.
Right? That's democracy.
Let me hope that is the spirit in which they invited UPC, Jimmy Akena and Norbert Mao and everyone whom they knew that they were.
And about my friend Norbert Mao, me being a DP and his corporation. Well, yeah, now you're saying yes because there was distinction. You see, the issue is not whether he cooperates with government or works with government, because coalitions, there's nothing wrong with a coalition.
Yeah.
But going into that situation, one, where you've written yourself into the agreement, two, where you've written yourself into what I call a humiliating agreement, where you agree to everything that comes from the other side, and they can only consider what comes from your side. You don't need an agreement for a situation like that.
Okay, it's usually between the two parties.
My
And actually, maybe
on that.
to add on to his point, I happen to know UPC more because I know friends who have been there, including Jimmy Akena and others. What I have observed, the disagreement about the coalition there, like in UPC, has not been about working with the NRM. The problem of the UPC members has been the problem of individual arrangement, that you take your wife in cabinet, then you relate at individual level. So then you humiliate all the party structures. And I think when they meet as party cabinet, they narrow it down.
But that is hypocrisy of the highest order.
Exactly. So the problem is,
that's the divide and
he
rule.
talked about the insecurities, that if you really want to enter in such a coalition with NRM, why can't we involve the party structures, discuss it honestly?
Gentlemen, our time is running out, and we have to handle this very very serious matter, and at some point a very fragile issue about anti-homosexuality and the legislation that has been adopted. Like I said, the aftershocks are still reverberating across the region and beyond. The statement from Joe Biden, then the threats to cut aid. But there was that ironic incident when the U.S. Embassy in Kampala raised that flag for LGBT community. I don't know if you saw it. And
I saw it, but I don't know whether it was true or it was doctored, because the photo looks so faint. I didn't believe it.
okay, that aside, let me give you at least 5 minutes, Dr. Gerard Wede-Wanzala. Look, now everything has been done. The law has been adopted, and the threats are very real. That they will withdraw aid, they will actually impose sanctions. All that has been done. In your heart of hearts, do you think we are ready to handle the consequences?
Two things. One, on issues of cutting aid, I have seen contradicting information from statements released by some countries in Europe and US, not speaking the same. Let me take the issue of HIV. I saw the joint statement of UNAIDS, which are only Winnie Byanyima heads, and then other agencies. Their focus was about the HIV, saying that this could potentially affect the progress made in terms of fighting the HIV virus. And of course, they particularly talk about these groups going into hiding, fearing to be prosecuted because of their sexuality and things like that. So they did not express, they said they will cut funding for HIV. I saw also the Biden statement
on PEPFAR,
saying, of course, they praised Uganda for a lot of progress made in diplomatic language, and the awards our leadership has received in respect to fighting HIV. And then they say we are going to evaluate whether it is dangerous or these populations can actually access this badly needed medication. But of course, there was a rebuttal from Uganda, including in Parliament, where saying we are not criminalizing treatment, but of course, these groups who may, since it's criminal, they may fear to present themselves before the health facilities. But now, what?
But if you go to a health facility, do they ask you whether you are homo? You are a homo or not?
Actually,
does that stop them
a few
from
years
accessing
back,
those
a
drugs?
few years back, about maybe 4 years back, there was a serious discussion in the Parliament where a budget was presented, and there was a budget for, you know, they hide them, lubricants.
In
Yeah, I
health,
remember
yes,
in the
it is
Ministry
there.
of Health budget. And so implying, as the politicians were talking, but in the budget,
Oh.
the budget for those groups were there. And they call them, I think, key populations. That's the language they use. So what do I see? Like now I'm seeing in some countries like Netherlands are already cutting, you know. I think for them they have suspended already $26 million for governance. And so we shall see this. But specific countries may take different approaches. For instance, our war in Somalia, I strongly believe that in Uganda we talk about Pan-Africanism, saying we are fighting that war in order to fight for Africa.
Yes.
Okay. But the reality is that we went to Somalia because of the American war on terrorism. So, if you are punishing us because of this bill, how are we going to? What's the effect on the war on terrorism? So the geopolitics may determine the way, like military aid that the U.S. gives the Uganda government. I think it may come down to specifics. But then with Europe, I can tell you that movement is very strong in Europe, and the aid will be cut. Whether we are prepared to fill up the gap. Of course, the strategies we would take is to become frugal, okay, austerity measures, that we focus on priorities and we don't misuse money. But are we ready, like the president was telling MPs in Chankwanzi,
Are we ready to
that
starve
if you
ourselves?
want sedentary lifestyle, then you'll become a prostitute? That's what he was telling the MPs. So if we continue, why are other civil servants buying their personal cars? But every year we give MPs money for cars. Is it still okay that we continue segmenting the country into small sub-counties, administrative units, and then districts are dysfunctional? So we have to choose where to cut and then where to prioritize.
All right.
And we avoid the wastage we are seeing around.
If I may ask you, was it a coincidence that immediately after signing the bill, DGF officially wound up?
No, as you know, we have been having a close relationship with the DGF, and the DGF started winding up process in September last year. So in September, following the 2 years of disagreement with the government, they had a 5-year program which was to end, and then they designed a successor program. But because of that, they wasted 2 years, and this is European taxpayers' money. So they terminated all partnerships in September, and then they were doing the evaluation of the program up to March.
Thank you.
So it was in plan
It was
to
in
exit
plan.
by June.
Simon, are we ready? Are we really not only ready, but are we able to mitigate the consequences of adopting this legislation, in your own view?
I think I even just want to add a statement to that. Are we ready? Are we able? But are we most importantly willing?
We have to be willing.
There has to be a
Yes.
willingness. Because the readiness, like it or not, circumstances are going to push us into being ready or not, by virtue of the step that we have taken. Now, let me just make a build up to that. The question of the geopolitics is a very determinant factor.
Really?
In this. I will just show you the interplay of the powers at a global stage, right? You're having Uganda making a stand, a non-alliance stand, all right?
Yeah, on Russia and Ukraine.
Concerning the Russia, the Ukraine. We are in fact organizing a very big conference which is going to happen for the non-aligned countries here, where our dear Sudhir is getting quite a lot of money in some news analysis, earning about 600,000 per hour.
Really?
From Uganda. I mean, very brilliant breakdown. Now, the thing is this. Non-alignment, Russia is lobbying nations, okay, that can align with it. It's courting African nations. It's making strategic alliances. The Russia-African alliances.
As China is doing,
As China is doing. And remember, Russia, China have had very, very strong stances concerning homosexuality. Then you have the whole pro-West movement, the European nations, the American nations, which are heavily pushing for the gay agenda. What this means to us is this. I would not even be very quick to be worried about the cutting of funding I would rather be more concerned about how we align ourselves concerning the war. That right now, Russia is courting nations which are going to align to it in terms of their current war. So there is though that politics alone is determining a lot. So Uganda, by making a stand concerning homosexuality, is also quickly, and you read into the statements of the recent visit of the Russian minister,
Sergei Lavrov.
Yes, with what's this gentleman's name, Jeje Odong, the meeting they had, and the statements that Mr. Museveni made. He said that for us, we are not aligning because of a war. We have a historical relationship of over 100 years of Uganda standing. Okay? Now, read that into the new move that is happening with the formation of the BRICS. You've heard of the BRICS?
Yes, yes.
Britain, Russia,
China,
India,
and
China, South Africa. With the new move to collapse the dollar and cause a new financial order. Also that reads into alignment movements. And the homosexuality angle also gets to make us align. Finally, you want to read it into the choices we made during the COVID time. That Uganda chose an approach of blanket measures that could curtail or suppress the virus, most of which were adapted from some of these nations which are currently intimidating us. But most importantly behind that is that there is a globalist agenda which is being pushed. An agenda which is pushing, number one, homosexuality as the undertone. But I'm shocked that you journalists actually are not interested that Mr. Museveni assented to 6 laws.
Yeah.
6 laws.
Yes.
The most dangerous of those laws is the Public Health Amendment Act.
Oh yeah.
That is the act which is actually going to impose mandatory lockdowns, mandatory vaccinations, a lot of, you talked about siphoning and the financial hemorrhage which is talking about, which has to be cured. Actually, it's not being cured. There's another law which is in the offing. Now, for me, what we fail to read into is the broadness of the discussion. Homosexuality is one of those discussions which are meant to divert, not to shape our context. They are actually much more pressing. If you read that law, that is more dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about the organ transplant.
Organ
question.
transplant.
Yes.
That's even much more dangerous. So there is a lot of blanket statements being made, and as we have an opportunity in the media, we are merely sensationalizing the issue, but failing to have a tactical, logical, conclusive approach and a decisive approach towards what benefits us as a nation.
But the position our president and the whole country has taken on the matter of homosexuality cannot be sensational. That is a tough stance, actually, that puts us at a collision course with very powerful Western powers.
And that is where the sensationalization actually dwells. Exactly that. When Mr. Museveni makes such assessments, what did he say in 2014 after he signed? After he signed, then Wembaka said, I am still understanding scientifically this thing of homosexuality. Is it nature or nurture? That was the discussion. So, again, the same stance he makes, and he says, we have concluded that discussion.
If I heard you well, are you saying the whole thing is more political, not what we are actually seeing? I don't know. Is it what you're saying?
It is, yes. Number one, it is political. And as I said, there is no willingness. If you tell me, for example, when you read that act, one of the things they talk about is provision of social services for, what is it called? Rehabilitation facilities. Now, if you're going to do rehabilitation, let me give you one very simple, and I'll conclude with that. So you talk about rehabilitating homosexuals, right? When you throw them into prisons, our prison system is distinguished, right? Males alone, females alone. So you're getting people who have been practicing homosexuality to throw them amongst males. Are you curing the virus? Are you curing the virus?
So you propose we create isolated, places for those convicted for homosexuality?
Your budget can answer you.
I am Newton in Budumba, Butaleja district. I don't see any result of PDM because it's nowhere in my parish. Opposition in Uganda is full of this word, but it's not a bad word, hopelessness. It's not bad. That they don't have hope. I think
it is
that's
just descriptive.
Thank you so much, Newton. And let me see another one here. Is Mukisa Ronald in Iganga. Thank you so much for the program. My regards to Dr. Werihe, Simon, and the first son. Thank you, Muksa Ronald. Some of the messages I have here are appreciative of what we are doing, and in the interest of time, I've been told I have only 5 minutes. Honorable, allow me. You use those 5 minutes and we wind up.
I will, even less.
Please.
Well, my first comment about it is I'm glad that you sent me the copy of the act. I went through it quickly. I looked for what I wanted to see. Because for me, the most important thing about this thing, it is a diversion, and I'll
A diversion from what?
Don't worry, it is a diversion, and I commend your analysis. It was very much to the point. These are the issues that I had noted myself. But the issue that I was looking for in this law is whether it tackles the issue of promotion. Because the most significant issue about the whole debate is the promotion of homosexuality, not the question of homosexuals. They have always been there, the laws have been there. But the fear of the public has arisen because there's a lot of promotion. Those aspects our colleague there talked about of issues that were forced into the health budget against the wishes of Minister through Acheng, but she got orders from above, right? And she raised her arms. So there's a lot of two-facedness in this thing. Now, is it a diversion? There's nothing. I mean, already we have laws barring homosexuality. There was not even a proper debate.
Really?
No, there was not a proper debate.
Isn't it because this law had come, has been presented before? In 2000?
It doesn't matter whether it was presented before. Whenever you bring it,
2014.
Whenever you bring it, if you look at the statute that was written, it's very badly written law. My legal friend here will tell us. The law itself, the wording, it's just playing to the gallery. They're just playing to the gallery. Now, the geopolitics is there, and it is the calculation, of course, of Mr. Museveni. It's political vision, because as my colleague here said, you have this war in Europe.
Ukraine.
Yes, and the African countries have sat in the middle. The Russians are coming into Uganda. You're seeing in Sudan that there's a war. People think that the Sudanese are fighting amongst themselves. The reality is that the people in government allowed the Russians to put a military base in Sudan. As a consequence, the Americans reached out to the other group. Yeah. Now the whole country is being destroyed. So it's not Sudanese who are destroying Sudan.
Oh.
No. You have to look at geopolitics and look
so
at
there is much more beyond the Anti-Homosexuality Act.
Yes, but there is also the element of diversion. My friend here pointed out that there were 6 other laws. Some of these that, as far as, if there's there are homosexuals that we know when we see them on television, and they're always joking about them, right? I don't know if you've invited them here, but there are some are related to the first family. They're not going to be arrested, and we all know that. So that's the two-facedness, playing to the gallery, right? And they're trying to appear to be fighting homosexuals more than everybody was fighting for a piece of this space, not going into the substance of the issue. Even to the extent of why they even have to go up, to the extent of saying, if I was writing that law, I would not write it in that way. We have the same sentiments, but I would have written...
Honorable, in the interest of time, you will allow me, you give your parting shot and you tell us in that parting shot, what do you think this law will, what will happen? Do you think it will be implemented? What next?
It won't be implemented. Now they are playing to the gallery. There's no intention of implementing. Each one is looking at their voters. And the speaker is looking at in diversion from the iron sheets, hoping that this will protect her against
Okay.
possible arrest. We are happy that the visa has been cancelled, which means that she's locked into Uganda.
Did anyone here say that this law may be used to victimize the opposition?
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Do you agree it will? It may?
Yes, it may. Because all somebody has to do is to slander you.
Okay.
And
Simon, your parting shot.
I think
About its implementation, do you think it will be possible?
implementation certainly not, but implementation in the context of persecuting opposition, certainly yes. You just need to ask Besigye concerning his rape case.
Oh, Chakuan. Doctor, your parting shot.
Yeah, some people will benefit, like Vasarira, who comes from Bugiri. I studied.
You also think?
No, I studied it
on
there.
behalf of another
No,
group?
I studied it there, and I know that Muslims are about 70% of that area, Naluwe Bugiri. So it appeals to his constituency.
voters.
Yes, but the law will be very hard to implement because we have them here, but how to find out that homosexuals, it's a private thing which is very hard to enforce. But if it's able to curtail, but my fear also is on issues of mob justice, because when you hear sentiments at times on social
in the
media,
public,
they are very dangerous. If you walk like a woman, or
as a passing...
They have threatened sanctions. Do you hope there will be sanctions on some people?
well, some, like already we have seen the speaker has been targeted. Some people will be targeted, but also it helps us now because people are saying that why do we need to go to America? But of course, some collect money here, they hide it there, they take their children there. So it is okay, let them.
I imagine.
Then we can see that they are real
as a passing
patriots.
shot, we are looking at the effect now, where the populism is there. In 2.5 years' time, when people are going back to get the votes, people will now realize that yes, they passed a law, and then nothing happened. Right? They could have discussed more important issues.
Gentlemen.
That's when they'll find out what the electorate is not asleep.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I have to pass on my special appreciation to Dr. Gerard Were Wanzara, Simon Senyonga, and Honorable Wasarule, and more especially our audience, the people who have been watching. You can follow up this program. You can find it on YouTube, Salt Media, and on all other platforms. My name is Mapolo. Let's wait and see how it works out, whether it will work or not. But I imagine if any of these big people who have been used to flying out for treatment, what will happen when one wishes to go either for treatment in America, when actually we have not constructed our
That's the
health
positive
facilities,
thing
public
about
health facilities here, which can actually handle those
They will
issues.
go to Luboa Hospital.
My name is Mapolo. I wish you, and once again, happy Matters Day once again. A splendid weekend and a good week ahead. To those others who were behind the program in production, on camera, thank you so much. Until next week.